Welcome back to the Giants, guys. We've got Ivy Leaguer and two-time Super Bowl champ Kevin Boothe sitting down with the Giants, guys.
Woo! Guess what, people? We back. Another episode of the Giants, guys. And you always know you're in the right place when Jeff does that crazy thing with his arms from Wedding Crashers. Yeah, you
hey,
know
Kevin,
you're in the right place.
Carl Banks did it with me. Kevin, can you do it with me? Just a little bit of this. Yeah,
There
buddy.
you go. Yeah. Okay, so we got like every former Giant gives us some time. We're very fortunate. And Pilgrim gets them all to do this. You know, there's something wrong with our show that we model everything after the Wedding Crashers. Okay.
Great movie.
Kevin, thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Hey, happy to be here. Happy to join you guys.
Yeah, I've been stalking you for a while. So and Kevin's like, oh man, I'm sorry. I'm not blowing you off. He's like, I'm knee deep in the league stuff. So I appreciate a couple minutes.
Yeah, for sure. As you mentioned, this is a long time coming, and especially how this year is that 10th year of the Super Bowl 46 run. It kind of flows perfectly, I think.
No, it's perfect. Well, I'm gonna start off a little bit back in the day, if you don't mind. We got Jeff in the building. Michael Stewart's here. I gave the rest of the team off for the day, so we can spend some quality time with you. I'm gonna start off with Florida, okay? Because this kind of stuff I asked all. We've had Ballard and Tynes, we've had Blackburn, we've had Soybert on.
You've had some characters.
Yeah, exactly. We have fun. We don't ask too many hard questions. We don't, we just have some fun. So I always ask about the path to New York. So you're a Florida kid, right? And you commit to Cornell. So the first thing out of my mind is I've played against Ithaca. I mean, okay, and it is cold and it snows. Now I know, listen, hey, you are a 2016 inductee to Cornell's Hall of Fame. You basically, were an All-American for 3 years. You commit to, but why? Like, was it an Ivy League vacation? Because you're a Florida cat, and you're like, let me find the place where it snows the most and it's cold all the time.
Yeah, it's fun when the sun disappears from November till April. Just to take it back, I was born actually in New York City, but moved to Fort Lauderdale a little bit before my 3rd birthday. So like you said, a Florida boy through and through. I was fortunate enough to go to a small private school in Fort Lauderdale that would send people to Ivy League schools, not necessarily for sports, for football, but academically. And, I did well enough in school, or as I like to say, tricked enough people to think that I could do well at an Ivy League school. And
I like that.
It helps that I played football. So, it was one of those things that I took a few visits. Cornell was my first visit, and I felt most at home there. And honestly, I wasn't heavily recruited. I wasn't a highly recruited player coming out of, South Florida at the time. I played against a lot of great players, future NFL players, but it all works out for a good reason. And I always believed that if I was good enough to play in the NFL, it didn't matter where I went to school, so I might as well kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, because like I said, because like Cornell is a great education. I'm just always like, man, I only played there once. I played against it. So I was a D3 player.
Yeah,
and Ithaca.
I know the Bombers. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a perennial powerhouse, and
great
believe
program.
It or not, and I'm dating myself. I'm a little older than you, but in the early '90s, we went up there and beat them on their home field, which was unheard of. And I was like, "It's freaking cold up here! Like it's no joke cold. Like there's cold, but like if you're not in like Green Bay, it's just as cold up there." So I was kind of like just trying to figure out. Like you said, you weren't recruited, but was there other schools that you kind of were on your map? Because again, you chose like one of the harder places to play.
Yeah. Well, there were a few other Ivy League schools. Probably the closest to bigger schools is I got a late interest from UConn, actually, right when UConn was changing over from 1AA to 1A. And also South Florida was kind of in the mix too. And that was also in their early days too. They're not necessarily the South Florida that they are or have been over the last 5-10 years. But like I said, not heavily recruited, and I didn't get fooled on my recruiting visit, man. I vividly remember going there in December of 2000, and it was 3 degrees. So it's not like I got one of those fluky
Wait,
days.
did you say
Yeah,
3?
three.
1, 2, 3?
1, 2, 3.
I'd have
Coming
been
from
like,
Fort Lauderdale.
Mom, Dad, we're out
This
of
is
here.
it, right? Yeah. I don't know. I think it was just it was everything about it. They must have did a heck of a job recruiting me, I guess. I don't know. What's one of those things you look back on? Like, I don't know.
I was doing some reading on you, and you were a part of some senior honor society in Cornell. Is that right? So you did more than trick people. I think you're being a little humble here.
Yeah. You ever see the movie Skulls? It's like you can't really talk about it. It's one of those things. No.
Okay.
That's called Fight Club.
Yeah, that too.
First rule.
No, it's the Quill and Dagger. It's an honor society based off of community service and accomplishments at the university, both academically and extracurricularly. So yeah, very honored to be a part of that. But yeah, man, I'll tell you, I keep trying to fool enough people, man. I'm keeping that thing going for a while.
Well, whatever it is, I hope it rubs off on me because it's working for you. So all right,
I'll take some of that.
Let's say you're at, you graduate, you're a 6th-round pick, for the Raiders. So now you're going across the entire country. Like, have you any experience? Is this like little South Florida kid goes to the big city kind of thing? Because you go across the entire country, it's got a little culture shock, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when I think back about my draft experience. I still talk to my wife about it, who was my girlfriend at the time, and we joke about it because it wasn't necessarily a happy weekend. It was more relief when I was finally picked. I remember leading up to the draft being on ESPN and Sports Center and Mel Kiper's, the super sleepers and all that stuff. And, there was rumors floating around that I could go in the 2nd or 3rd round. So
you're like, yes.
Yeah. So, and at the time it was when the draft was just Saturday, Sunday, first through 3rd round was Saturday, and then the remainder of the draft was on Sunday, and I watched every single pick. So yeah, by the time I got the call, I think I was laying in my bed by myself.
The party was over.
Right. Everybody's not trying to make eye contact with me, one of those things.
His girlfriend is no longer his girlfriend.
Yeah, he was single already.
Yeah, his wife left already.
Yeah. So no, it was more relief. And actually, when I looked at the screen when the phone rang, San Francisco was on the clock, and I thought it was the 49ers. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I actually grew up, watching the 49ers. I'll admit that. That's a strange kind of twist of fate, is that I grew up liking the 49ers in South Florida. And one of the most painful memories growing up was Leonard Marshall killing Joe Montana. So it's every time I see Leonard, it's like, man, it takes me right back. And then, to basically do the same thing back in 2011, the NFC Championship game was great. But yeah, so I thought it was San Francisco. And then, I get on the phone and they say, hey, this is the Oakland Raiders. And I got to talk to Art Shell for a little bit, who was the coach heading into my rookie year, and quickly realized this is the real world. And I was on a plane going over there that Thursday or whatever it was for rookie minicamp.
Yeah, I mean, you played for 2 icons right there with Davis and Shell. I mean, they're 2 iconic names, in the NFL. And what I always find strange is you ended your rookie year as the starting guard. Like you were playing, and how do you not have a gig the next year? Like, how does that happen?
It's the strangest thing, and that's kind of life in the NFL, right? It's ups and downs, and you never know which way things will go. My rookie year, we were awful, right? That was the year leading into the Jamarcus Russell draft. So 2006, we went 2-14. I think it was the middle of week 2 in Baltimore. I got put in at right guard, I think in the 3rd quarter or something like that, and played well enough to where I earned a starting gig from week 3 on for the rest of the season, and started 14 games at right guard. Obviously, we didn't do very well. We were very close to setting the sack record that year. Very close. The last few weeks, it got a little dicey,
A record you probably don't want your name attached to.
Exactly. But, nonetheless, I thought that, I played well enough, and that was one of the better performers on a tough year for the offensive line. I thought, hey, this is a place I'll be for a while. But, things quickly change. We had a coaching change. Art Shell was out. New coach comes in, new philosophy. And, went through training camp. And it was one of those things that, you immediately see the veteran guard signed as a free agent. And you're like, uh-oh, and you start to get limited reps. And I still thought I would make the team. So it was a little bit of a shock to get that call on that cut down day. And I mean, it was like the last possible minute my phone rings and it's like, yeah, you're cut.
Well, wait, let me back up for a second. If you didn't get drafted, right? You're gonna, I mean, you got a Cornell education. You're a smart cat. Are you, if you don't get drafted, do you tell your agent, hey, find me a gig? Or do you say, hey, hey, I can do anything. I got a Cornell education. I'm a smart guy. Like, is football in the cards regardless? You're going to give it a go, or you never? Yeah.
Yeah. Football. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Kind of like that irrational confidence that I think a lot of football players have. Stuff just doesn't make sense. Like I, was a overweight injured guard my freshman year at Cornell, but I still figured I'd end up in the NFL. I don't know why. I just always believed that, even as a kid in high school. So at that point, obviously, as disappointing as it was to see the picks go by, I knew I was good enough to play at that level. So I was anxious to get to that point. I was still holding out hope that I'd get drafted, though. I didn't let my mind get to the point of the undrafted territory. I don't know if the 7th round starts, maybe I start to have those conversations, because I think it's then who should we sign with, if there is anybody interested. But yeah, it was definitely football.
So Jeff, think about this. So he goes out the season, he's starting, new season starts, like he says, new coach, and they're signing guys. You kind of see the writing on the wall. Jeff, my question is, like, we've asked this to a couple guys, like, Ballard and Blackburn, who got cut. Like, when's that call come, right? Like do you, like, you're waiting for that call. When's the call come?
I kid you not. Say cut down day, say it has to be by 4:00 Eastern, 1:00 Pacific. I kid you not. It was probably 12:40 or so. My phone rings and it says unknown number. And I looked at my wife and I was like, I just got cut. Like, I was like, yep, I just got cut. And it's like that whole drive to the facility and drive back is like a blur. It feels like you're like floating almost, because I mean, you got to think about it. It's at that time, that was the first time in my life, basically, I was told I'm not good enough playing football. It's like, what?
Which
what
is extra surprising, because you had a random opportunity in the third quarter of your second game, and you take it and run with it. So if you're the Raiders, you're thinking, here's a homegrown guy that started for us. I know the line was struggling, but like showed promise. And like, that's a guy I would hang on to. And maybe because you were cut so late, it was a tougher decision where it was down to a couple of guys, I'm assuming, something like that. But did you have a moment where you're like, shit, like, I don't know if I'm going to get another chance? Or were you like, okay, where's the next stop? Let's go.
Yeah. I don't think I got that far. It was probably more shock at that point. And, I don't know. I guess it was more, I can't believe this is happening. And I'm just trying to process it all, talking to my agent saying, hey, they tried to trade you. So there's definitely some interest there. Okay. So just hang tight, hang tight.
How long do the Giants call you?
It was
how long was that time in between?
That was the next afternoon. So it was the Sunday afternoon. My agent
weren't
calls
sad
me
for too long.
Yeah. Sunday afternoon, my agent calls me and goes, hey, you're a New York Giant. You got to catch a flight at 10:00 tonight on a red eye to Newark. So
we interviewed Blackburn. He told a very similar story. He's like, he was starting, everything was great. He made special teams captain. He got cut, and he was like, I don't know what's going on. He said, what was it? He was laying on his back playing, because the rumor, the urban myth was that he was in class teaching because he got himself a teaching gig. That's like the urban legend. He's like, I was laying on my back playing with my kids. He's like, and when the phone rang, he's like, his wife says, hey, your phone's ringing. And he goes, yeah. It's probably the Giants, and they joked, and they kind of, a couple seconds go by, and they and she leans over and goes, she's like, no, the Giants are calling you. You know what I mean? Like, so like sometimes those in between moments are ones that you remember for a long time, because it's like, I got another shot.
Yeah. And I tell you what's crazy about that time. I do have a sense of pride about it, because I know I talked to my old offensive coordinator, Kevin Gilbride, and there were some times in there where I think he interviewed with the Raiders at one point during the several coaching changes they had with Mr. Davis, and Mr. Davis did bring me up during one of those
like
interviews
a mistake,
or whatever.
He
told me like, yeah, we shouldn't have. I'm bummed that we ended up letting him go. Basically saying what you guys said. It was like the last cut, and at the time I had only played guard. I didn't have any other experience in another position, and they basically selected a swing guy essentially to go. A kid that played center before. So that was certainly an interesting time. But you're talking about the ups and downs, and the first person I met at Giant Stadium, walking into Giant Stadium, was actually Dave Gettleman. He's the first person I met on the team. Yeah.
Well, just so you know, Michael Stewart, I'm sure you'll back me up on this. I got 5 guys that write for the website, and they're my team here. Michael Stewart, would you say we're pro Gettleman?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
good. I am too. That's my guy. That's my guy.
We realize what other people don't realize. The fans are a little crazy. They don't realize he's a player personnel guy, and brought guys like you and Antrell Roll and Plaxico Burst. I say all the time, I'm like, hate him all you want. If he wasn't there and he didn't bring in guys like Boothe and Roll and Ballard and these guys, if he didn't bring these guys in, you might not have a trophy. Like, and they're like, oh, well, yeah, okay. They don't usually look at him as a player personnel guy.
Yeah. I mean, he was the first person. He told me, hey, we were watching you. He said, we knew you from coming out of Cornell, and we kept our eye on you, and we saw that this was an opportunity and took a chance on you on the waiver wire. So I was there right in the building immediately, in the meetings and practice and all that stuff. And, it was like that first day of school for the new kid, but everybody else is like, 2 months into it. So it's like, who's the new kid coming in? Remember seeing Snee and O'Hara. I think they were coming from the weight room or something like that. But honestly, just it felt like home, just because of how everybody welcomed me into the organization. And I was nervous about Coach Coughlin. This was the offseason actually of the big change, right? So up until the 2007 season,
nobody knew if he was going to make it.
It was the big bad Tom Coughlin. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got my butt kicked for a whole season in Oakland, and now I got cut, and now I'm gonna go play for Coach Coughlin, who is this guy that everybody says is tough, and and he comes out and he introduces himself, and business as usual, saying how his expectations are X, Y, and Z, and that if I do that, I'll fit in just fine with this team. And we were off and running.
Jeff, who was the guy that said a similar scenario, that like that was the year, with the whole Strahan holdout, or and like all of a sudden, like next thing you know, like Tom's a softer, gentler guy somewhere down the road, like, but in the beginning, he was the gruff Tom Coughlin. Somebody, who was it? Was it
maybe Soybert?
One of them said it was like,
it might have been Soybert. Yeah.
So that first day that I showed up to Giant Stadium, it was news crews all around, like all over the place. I'm like, what is this? What New York is all about? But it was the day that Strahan reported. So the cameras were all there.
They're all there to cover his.
Yeah, I'm like,
his
man,
signing.
the waiver.
You're like, hello,
pickup,
New York.
The waiver wire pickup. Here we are. But yeah, it was that day, and I quickly realized, I'm like, well, unless I'm missing something, Coughlin's not that bad. I mean, he sets his rules, and off you go.
See, if we had been doing this show back when you got picked up, we're like psychotic fans. We would have had an episode on you. We would have been looking at your tape with the Raiders, dissecting it.
Totally, but then again, remember, it's overshadowed by Michael Strahan coming back.
Coming back, yeah. There might have been some other items.
Regardless of what Kevin did, if he could have been handing out $100 bills on Route 46. It wouldn't have mattered because Michael Strahan was back.
That's right.
And I'm not diminishing Kevin at all.
No.
You're a great player, but it's like, I mean, him, he's an electric dude. So when he came back, Jeff, you gotta remember, it was like, he's not coming. He's dating Eddie Murphy's ex-wife. He's on the beach in California. It didn't matter who did what at that time.
Yeah. I mean, he was the face. He was, Eli was such a quiet leader that Strahan was the guy for both sides of the ball. He was the leader.
No doubt.
Yeah.
All right. So then let's so here's it. You're back on the East Coast. You come in. Now you're walking into like one of, or if not, what we would consider the best offensive line the New York Giants have ever had. You make the early, those 86, 90 teams, like they had like Bart Oates and Godfrey and Billy Yard. Those guys were great. Exactly. They were great. I still think that window of O'Hara, McKenzie, Snee, Soyber, and Deal were probably, they were on the front cover, ESPN, thing. Like, what's it like coming there knowing, well, you just said like a little worried about Coughlin, but what's it like walking in there like, okay, these 5 guys, like they own this job, and these guys are like, these are the guys that are taking these guys somewhere. Like, was it like hey, I'm battling or I'm cool just to be in this scenario? Like, what's that like? Because it is 5 very mature linemen that you walked into.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, coming into that group, I quickly realized that I had a lot to learn about being a pro. My rookie year in Oakland, it was, I was just out there playing. I was just basically tossed out there and, sink or swim type of thing. You're just playing, But what I quickly learned is how to be a professional, how to watch film, how to watch film on myself, kind of self-evaluate, the preparation that goes into game planning and how to practice the right way, how to, communicate with one another. So it was almost like getting another rookie year, that 07 year.
Cool.
Because I was mostly inactive that year. So I got to learn so much from those guys. And honestly, I credit all those guys for, I think allowing me to play as long as I did. Because I think if I end up going to another team, I'm not sure how long I last in the NFL. I think a lot of this stuff is luck, when you're talking about NFL careers, whether it's health-based, but also probably just right there with injuries.
Or scheme,
situation. Where you go, right?
Yeah.
It's where you go. You go into a perfect scenario with a stable organization, a great head coach, a great offensive line, a great offensive line coach. Yeah, one of my favorites. So I got to learn so much from those guys that first year, even that second year that I was there before I actually started to play a little bit more. And crazy story about Flats, a small world, Coach Flaherty. He was actually my brother's D-line coach in college, and my brother's 10 years older than me. So
wow,
weird world with football coaches.
Everybody just like, I have never heard a bad word about him. Everybody's and like when he got left go, it was like somebody lost a family member, because they were like, why are we letting go of Pat Flaherty? Look at these Pro Bowl, Super Bowl offensive lineman that he turns out, and everyone just credits the work ethic, the scheme, and you guys are all friends, like Flaherty's like a family member to you guys.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the other thing that I realized is how close the group was, and still is, I think, to an extent today. But being able to come right in as a guard and basically work behind Richie and Chris, those were guys that I watched actually my rookie year in Oakland, because our schemes were somewhat similar. So I would see some of their game film and I thought, man, who is this 76? This short guard. And please tell him I said that. This short guard who's like, trying to hurt people every play. And then Richie just wouldn't stop going, and then you could tell that Sean was kind of that that leader up front at the center position. So, I got to quickly get in with them, and I think what they respect is hard work and a willingness to compete and to fight. And you got to have some thick skin and a sense of humor. And once you have that, you fit right in with them. And I was able to get there. And what quickly happened is, it's week 1 against Dallas, and Chris is asking me, "Hey, what do you see on the sideline? What are you seeing in terms of my technique, or what are they doing?"
Awesome.
So it's like I'm right into it. It's not like I'm just standing there doing nothing. I'm in street clothes and I'm telling them, "Hey, I'm seeing this, or this is what I'm seeing. Your set looks good. You might be oversetting," whatever the case may be. And that, being able to provide that feedback to them, I think helped, bring me into the family, so to speak. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's Michael, you got a question?
Well, I'm just looking at Kevin, and Brandon Jacobs is making a comeback, linebacker. I mean, Kevin, you look bust. Yeah, you look like you'd be an edge rusher right now. I'm looking at you.
I don't think I can move like an edge rusher, but yeah, I'm down a little bit. I like the joke. Not as small as I think Snee had about probably like 30.
Snee and O'Hara look like totally different people.
Yeah,
O'Hara's
trying to get there.
All right, so you're gonna love this. All right, and I wanted to make sure I told you this. So we had Ballard on. For some reason, I was collecting Ohio football players for some reason, because I went I had Dominic Hickson, and then I had Jake Ballard, and then I had Blackburn. Like, for some reason, I was doing this run on an Ohio dudes, right?
And they'll let you know that they're from Ohio too.
Oh yeah, but I'll tell you, Ballard, unsolicited by me, sent a tweet out to me, I don't know, 3-4 days ago, and said, "So excited that you're interviewing Kevin, one of my favorite, best teammates I ever had."
Yeah, I saw that, and that's awesome. And that's the beauty, honestly, of the Giants. Obviously, I have a limited experience in terms of teams that I've played on, but everybody in that organization, I think that's what makes it such a special organization. I don't know how many are like this. Everybody from Mr. Mara all the way down to the support staff and those that help out at the practice facility, the players, everybody gets along, everybody sees one another, everybody interacts with one another, and it does give you that family feel. And it's one of those things that everybody in the building wins and loses together. Everybody feels it. You never get the "I don't care that we lost" type of thing. I'm just here to do my job. You never get that from the front office people.
We can totally sense that from the guys that were part of that team. And like, for some, we've talked to a handful of the guys that were lucky enough to be there for those golden years, that 07 to 11. If you were in there for that realm, every guy we've talked to was there for that. And there's such a brotherhood amongst you guys. Like, you talk about any other teammate, their face just lights up. Like, you guys
just to hear a name,
loved each other, played for each other. And I mean, that's why you guys were great.
And it's a reflection of leadership, whether it's the owners or Coach Coughlin. That was his big thing. The team. You always could hear Coach Coughlin.
You actually sounded like him a little bit,
right? Yeah.
well, Michael Stewart said you look like you're in shape. You could play a little ball. So we could not stop laughing, because Ballard is like, he's chucking weights around like crazy.
Oh my gosh, he looks like a mountain man.
Monster.
Like, got the bald head and the huge beard and everything.
Yeah, so we're having some fun with him, right? We and one of our other guys on the team, I think it was Fresh, says, you look like you're in really good shape. He's like, "Yeah, I'm 299," and we were like, whoa, wait a minute, you're 299? He's like, I mean, the cat is 6'6". I mean, he's a big dude.
Yeah, he's a dense kid. Yeah,
but he played at like 265, 270. And we're like, he's like, "Yeah, I'm still banging weights and stuff." I was like, "Oh my god!" So Blackburn says he's having a golf outing. We were promoting it. He's like, "Yeah," he's like, "I think Ballard's gonna come." I'm like, "Oh, you won't miss him when he shows up."
Miss him. Yeah, and Jake's like 6'6" too.
I was gonna say,
you can hear, that it's not an offensive lineman when they don't want to lead with the 3. That means he's really like 305, 306. But because he's played tight end, he's like, "Oh, I'm 299."
Yeah, like, why not just gain one more pound so you can say 300?
It's amazing that he just said that, because that's so true. Think about it. If someone asked you what you weigh,
You were like, I'm
would you
300.
ever go
Like, I wouldn't have said
299?
299.
Yeah,
You'd
why would
either
you say
go
299?
You'd go
Great point.
295, 300. Why would you go 29? We're so you know what? I'm so calling him out on that.
Yeah. He's 305. He's maybe 299 first thing in the morning, but after breakfast, he's about 303.
That's a good point, though.
Yeah. No, that's all right. So here's it also gets tough for you because I mean, from a friend standpoint, it's tough to see this happen, but 2011, O'Hara and Soyber let go. They're battling a ton of injuries, kneecap injuries, ACLs, all sorts of injuries these guys are battling. And they're your friends. I mean, you guys have been in the same room for, since, you came. Is it just next man up, or is that like that, because you basically slot in, it's your job, right?
Yeah.
And
honestly,
one of those
it wasn't actually. Yeah, I wasn't the starter going into 2011, but to an extent, it was. I don't know if it's necessarily a quote unquote better opportunity, but I think it's like, hey, there's a chance for a larger role. But yeah, it was one of those things where it was tough to see. It kind of caught us off guard, but at the same time, we should have expected it. We knew that they both had such severe injuries, and even if they were still on the team, it was a question of whether they'd be ready to contribute, early on in the season. So it was a tough moment, but those guys, when you're talking about just great guys, great humans, it's like they're still texting with us. They're still communicating with us. We still hang out. It's like, we're able to jab them a little bit about things, and they're throwing stuff right back at us. And, they were our biggest fans that year, whether it was me, Chris, and then, even Dave Boss, when he gets signed as a free agent, you're thinking, oh my gosh, is it going to be weird with O'Hara around, in the area, and, he'd still be around. And,
yeah, he's a Jersey guy.
Yeah. And honestly, O'Hara was and still is like one of the best people. It was immediately like, hey, helping them with the playbook or whatever the case may be, just getting them prepared, telling them stuff about things off the field, whatever it was. It wasn't any type of negativity at all towards Dave Boss, because he wanted to see us and the team do well.
That's cool.
No, that is very cool. And those guys seem like they all have stayed friends over the years and tight. And
yeah. Still have plenty of juvenile group texts for sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that hasn't changed. Jeff, you got anything else you want to chuck in here?
Yeah, man. I'm curious because, we've got a star running back now, and there's already conversations starting about like what to do with them, or what's more important, the O-line or the talent at the running back. So like for you guys, how much of an advantage was it to have, Jacobs and Bradshaw? Like they complemented each other so well. And it almost seemed like their roles reversed over time, where, in the 07, it was Jacobs who would just pound the defense down. Then you put in this shifty younger guy in the second half who would run around him. Then they kind of switched a little bit. It seemed like towards 2011, but like how much of an advantage was it having those two guys? They were like brothers, like, they didn't care who scored. At least that's the way it seemed. They were just happy to always be playing together. To what, like the advantage of having those same two guys throughout those years.
Don't
like,
forget
how
Derek
important
Ward
is that?
too.
Yep, Derek Ward back then. Yeah. And honestly, it goes back to that closeness of the team when you're talking about no one caring about individual credit and everybody wanting to see the team do well. Those guys were the epitome of great teammates. I don't think I've ever played with a tougher teammate than Ahmad Bradshaw.
I love him.
He's one of my favorites, man.
So from the second he started as a rookie, he's just a bolt of lightning.
Especially that crazy ass running style.
That run, like a little bobblehead that kind of goes to the side. Once you see that going,
it always looked like he was running on the sides of his feet.
Yeah, because his feet were broken or whatever it was. I mean, the stuff that people didn't know, during those years when, you're in practice during the week and this guy can't walk, literally can't walk, can't practice. And then Coach Coughlin had a rule that you had to practice to play. So he's out there and he's trying to practice on a Friday, and you're like, he can barely run, and all of a sudden give him the ball 20 times on Sunday, and then by Monday he can't walk again, you know. And it was just kind of like this ongoing cycle, and just tough.
And if the NFL Network last night was actually replaying the Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl against the Patriots, the 18-0 Patriots, and Bradshaw, that play where he fumbled and it was his
How
fault.
did he get the ball back?
How did he get the other guy had it on the ground?
And it was like a D lineman. It was a D lineman that had the ball.
It was a big boy, and all of, like he was a rookie, so to fumble and then recover it in that moment, because I think Eli tip ball interception the possession before that. So like that's a huge game changer, and Bradshaw gets it back. Like I was like sweating even watching the replay last
inside his face mask.
Yeah, I mean, every time I watch those NFL Network replays, I watch the whole game and my wife rolls her eyes.
Me too.
Like, oh, I wonder who's gonna win, you know. And I'm sitting there, I'm tense, I'm like, my underarms are sweaty, like, you know. I'm still wondering if I'm gonna hold in Super Bowl 46. You know, all that
Michael
stuff.
Stewart, he just said his wife rolls her eyes and says, "Oh, I wonder who's gonna win." I mean, how much more classic can you get? The poor woman's like, "Can we watch this anymore? We know what's gonna happen."
Yeah. She's like, I was there. Yeah.
Can I get Kevin's take? Can I get Kevin's take on this year's Giants offensive line?
We can't do that. We can't.
Well, you know, to an extent, though. Like, I mean, I like it. I like the group. I like the group.
We want to be respectful. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Remember,
the thing is with offensive lines, though, the more you play, I think the better you get, right? The more you play together, and a lot of that, you know, relies on health and all that stuff. So I think the more reps they get, the better they'll be. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing them play. Everything I've heard is that they're a good group in terms of their personality and their work ethic. So I'm excited for them. It's a great opportunity this year, especially with all the players that have been acquired, whether it's through draft or free agency.
Like you mean like this guy?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, my kids, I got 3 kids. I have 2 boys, a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl, and they know everybody on the Giants. So the boys were fired up to see Kenny Golladay.
So, all right, this is completely off track because but you just brought it up, so I got to ask now, because now, I've seen pictures. You got beautiful family, look like you guys have a ton of fun. Like, do they root Giants? Like, is that like, you know, like my son's a Giants fan. We live in Eagle country, so we're always fighting, you know, tooth and nail versus people wearing, you know, Carson Wentz jerseys or whatever, you know, like, so like, do the kids, you know, rep the Giants or what?
They're Giants fans, but and I blame this on like the age of, you know, whether it's social media or Sports Center, whatever it is, they definitely like individual players of other teams more than I did growing up. You know, growing up with me, it was, you know, you had your team and that was it, right?
That's because they play a lot of Madden.
Fantasy football,
you know, fantasy football. I think all those stuff. So it's funny just to see the 2 personalities of my boys. Whereas my oldest, you know, he likes, you know, the Patrick Mahomes and the skilled players, you know, even those on the Giants, obviously. But my youngest kid, he's 6, and he has this football player kind of demeanor, and he's actually a big fan of defensive linemen. Specifically interior defensive line.
So he likes Leonard Williams.
Loves them. Loves Leonard Williams. Loves Lawrence. You know, loves Aaron Donald. You know, I mean, it's fascinating.
That's interesting for a 6-year-old to
personalities. Yeah, doesn't really care about scoring touchdowns. It's more about sacking the quarterback.
He's probably like, Dad, are these the guys that used to beat you up on Sunday?
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, do you think you could block them? I'm like, probably not. You know, those are the type.
Not Aaron Donald.
Luckily, Daddy got out of the league before Aaron Donald started.
Well, that's a great segue. You had a nice long career. There's got to be a guy. I don't know if you remember. There used to be a defensive back for the Eagles called Sheldon Brown.
Yeah.
And Sheldon Brown was a 2nd-round pick out of South Carolina. The 1st-round pick was Leo Shepard out of Florida.
Yep.
Right. So, and they went both of the Eagles 1 and 2, and they were best friends. At the time, I was working for CBS Sports, so I got to know these 2 cats, and they were good guys. You know, Sheldon was a workout fiend, and Lito was a car guy, a gearhead, loved his cars. And I'd gotten to know Sheldon a little bit, and he used to tell me all the time. Every year I'd ask him, I go, all right, who is it? He'd be like, hasn't changed. I'm like, come on, who's the hardest guy you got to cover? He goes, why do you ask me this every year? He goes, it's not going to change. It's Plaxico Burress. It never changes. He's like, I'm 5'10", I'm 210. He's like 215 on a good year, and I still can't cover that 6'6" dude. So my question to you is, who's the hardest guy to block?
Man, hardest guy to block. So I would go mostly with my interior play, right? So I'm thinking defensive tackles. The person that bothered me the most in a game, and luckily I didn't have to play him, I only played him once, was Geno Atkins. This was peak Geno Atkins. I would sense is probably in that same Aaron Donald type of disruption. Geno was a monster in that, like, those maybe 3 years, or if you're talking about maybe like 2011 to 13 or 14. But when you're talking about a guy who looks small, shouldn't be a defensive tackle, but is freakishly strong and fast, those are the ones that give you the trouble, right? It's not necessarily like the big run stoppers.
Like Wolfe.
Like Wolfe, great player, right? Great player, but I'm not worried about him on 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 7. Now he's this wide 3 technique,
Yep.
So I'd say in terms of like total package, it was him. Don't get me wrong, Vince was a monster and impossible to move.
But different. He doesn't
different,
have the same hands,
different type of guy.
Maybe
maybe I match up well with my arm length or something along those lanes. I'm a better matchup against a Vince Wilfork than I am against a Geno Atkins. Albert Hainsworth, when he wanted to go, was
really
because Albert was like a freak where he's 350, but his get off was like as if he was 280. If he wanted to run straight, there's nothing you do about it. If he decides to go, and Sean Rogers was like that too. Yeah, Sean Rogers was like that too. Just a big guy who had exceptional short burst quickness, and luckily I got to play with Sean my last couple years there with the Giants and didn't have to go against him. But honestly, divisional opponents were very tough because they knew everything about you. They knew what would give you trouble. So another teammate of mine in my later years, surprisingly maybe to some, but Cullen Jenkins was a very difficult person to block those Eagles years when I would play against them. Very, very difficult to block. And I was glad to get him on our side there for the last couple of years.
When we interviewed Carl Banks a couple of weeks back, he used to say that, like, Carl Banks didn't miss tackles. And Carl he said, I credit 100% Mark Bavaro. He's like, to this day, we're really good friends because every day in practice, coach will come up and go, hey, I need you to give it your all today because we need to work Mark over. Coach Pope would come up to him and say, hey, look, Carl, you got to give it to Mark today. And then, or Flaherty or any of these guys would come up and say, look, and I don't remember who the linebacker coach was in the 80s, but he was basically painting the picture that the reason why he was so good, both of them, was because at least twice a week during practice, they'd get after it.
Yeah. And that's true.
Was there a guy that
absolutely true with us? I was going to say, probably the most competitive parts of our practices would be Thursday 2-minute drill, which is every Thursday, the last portion of practice, 2-minute drill. Coach Coughlin would give us a scenario. Hey, it is 1:20 on the clock. You're on your own 32-yard line. You have no timeouts. You need a field goal to win. Go. And it's, you're going against Tuck. You're going against OC. You're going against JPP. So it's like going against those guys every day. I think that's why. And they were, and you could hear them too the whole time, so you have to deal with the chatter every time. Yeah. Oh, we had a sack there. We had a sack there. That was a sack. Eli has a red jersey on. But I think that helped us so much that we weren't necessarily flustered whenever it came to those end of game scenarios or those 2-minute drills, because we felt as though we went against the best, pass rushing group every day in practice, during those 2-minute drills.
And like OC and Tucker, some pretty, highly educated
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Yeah,
So
and Matthias Kiwanuka in there too.
Kiwi. I can see those guys trying to get in your head all day.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could still OC, the type of person OC is. He's the one that'll really get you going because he'll just laugh. It's one of those things where you're already mad at him, and then the person's just laughing because it's so easy. And that would kind of get you even more fired up. But yeah, those pass rushing scenarios I thought helped prepare us so that during those 2-minute drills in real life, we expected to score, and we were more shocked if we didn't score in those situations, whether it was before a half or at the end of games.
All right, so let's talk about tradition. Soibert, we were taken back by it when he told us the story, but I couldn't get enough of it. He said that him and Snee used to throw up before each game. Like yes. He would, and that Richie said, I call him Richie like I know him. Rich would say, yeah, I got to take that back. Sorry, Rich.
Good old Richie. We'll edit that out. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Rich. I didn't. No disrespect. Rich would say, I've been doing it for a long time. I get, if I eat anything or I get nervous, when he's like, I throw up in the bathroom. He's like, Sneevy coming off after the coin toss, people running the is like, did you see any of this? And is there anything like, do you have anything crazy like that? Or is that just these two, whack jobs?
Yeah, those two.
Whack jobs in a good way, though.
In a good way, endearing. Richie was the worst. You could hear him, like, it'd be in the locker room. At least his was in the locker room, but you'd hear him. And it was more theatrics more than anything. I'm not sure if he actually threw up, but Richie, you'd hear and you're like, what's going on in there? Oh, it's Richie. But you never really knew if he actually did it. Snee, he's completely accurate about Snee. Snee would, when he was a captain, he'd do the coin toss and he'd come over, and one of our support staff, he'd go to the end of the bench, they'd bring the trash can over, and you didn't want to look, but you couldn't help but look, and it was like an accident. Yeah, like you're just sitting there and you're like, how is that much coming out of this guy? And then he'd kind of look up, eyes bloodshot red, and he'd be like, all right, let's go. And he'd go out on the field every time without fail. It's like you knew it was coming. It was like, all right, now we're ready to play,
Yeah, we can't win until Snee throws up.
Yeah, and Richie just yells in the background of the locker room. We don't know what he's doing. I think Richie was just doing it for attention, though.
He said
theatrics.
One of the best things he said during the interview, he was actually up in the woods with his son at a hunting cabin, and he was like, I hope you guys don't mind. We're like, no, of course we don't, So he said, and I actually got to give him two things I got out of interviewing Richie. And I think, Michael, were you on that interview with Soibert?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you remember what he said? He goes, hey guys, we always say, if you can't play O-line, oh, well, there's always D-line.
Yeah.
We were rolling. We were rolling the way he said it. He's like, look, you got to be, a cerebral dude to play offensive line. But if you can't, you can always play D-line. Cracking up, right? Just caught me off guard. Wasn't ready for it, right? Then he says, like halfway through, Mike, did he not say, and I could be wrong, he said left guard was the hardest position to play on the line. So I was like, all right.
Oh boy. I
know
where this is going.
I go, timeout, Rich. I go, you can't get away with saying that unless you explain. He goes like, think about it, guys. He's like, if you're the right guard, the center always helps you out. He goes, if you're the left tackle, you've got a tight end. He's like, the only guy that doesn't have anybody is the left guard. He's like, the left guard works harder than anybody else in sports. He's like, think about it. He's like, they get all the glory out there, those tackles. He's like, they got tight ends helping them. He's like, they got backs helping them out on this side. He goes, and O'Hara, he's always going to slide and help out Snee. Cracking up, right? So my question is there any truth to this?
Oh man, you're trying to incriminate me now, because this
not on purpose.
This argument comes up in the group text probably, every week at some point. Somehow it'll get to, well, Snee's always getting help, or nobody ever helps Richie, and then it's, hey, I'm just the undrafted left guard here, but we're gonna go help the Pro Bowl right guard.
Oh
We're gonna have the two
no.
Pro Bowlers double team somebody and leave the
We,
undrafted
we're gonna have to
guy
get
by
We're gonna have to
himself.
get Mackenzie on. I still think he lives in Jersey.
Yeah,
We're gonna have to get that dude on because I'm sure he could probably give us the true story too.
it is. It's one of those things where I think we've got to go back and see which direction the slides have gone. Where has O'Hara gone, and put a percentage on it, because Richie will swear that more times than not it went to Chris, and Chris, Chris will take the help for sure. I think we'll all take the help whenever we can get it. But no, it's always good fun, and that's something that
Awesome.
we always talk about.
All right, so let's finish up with Super Bowl. Eli in the Super Bowl goes 30, and I'm going to round up by 4 yards here, so forgive me. Eli goes 30 for 40 with 300 yards. It was like 296. I rounded up for this conversation. Did you guys plan on throwing that much? Because that's double the amount of throws from the 2007 Super Bowl. I mean, it's a great day. First of all, you guys did a great job. But I'm just kind of curious, was like that the game plan? Yo, we're going to throw the rock 40 times?
Not necessarily. I think it was more just trying to control the game, take what they're going to give us. Because the thing about those Patriots defenses is that they kind of went with that bend but don't break kind of philosophy where, from 20 to 20, you can move the ball up and down on them, but then it's, can you score touchdowns? And, you could tell by the way that game went, if we scored touchdowns, the game's not necessarily close, but it ends up being a nail biter at the end. But they do a great job of making adjustments. We started the game out, I think we were running the ball pretty effectively against them. And then they started to button down. They changed their defensive scheme a little bit to make it a little bit tougher to get yards, and were forcing us to make throws and not giving up big throws at that. So it's a lot of 7-8 yard passes. You see 30 completions, you're thinking, man, he probably has 400 450 yards, and you see it's whatever it was, 300 yards. So it's a lot of shorter passes. You probably just see the one Manningham catch and maybe a couple of Cruz slant. Actually Hakeem slants that game that were the explosive pass plays.
There were a ton of mid-range, like third down pickups where it's like,
yeah,
the first drive of that first Super Bowl was like
forever.
9 minutes or something.
It was forever. Yeah.
And it was
Yeah,
3rd
that
and
was
5, 3rd and 7. Eli
game.
would just, if they needed 5 yards, they got 6. They needed 7 yards, you got 8.
It's one of those games. It's one of those games that, even looking back on it, it felt like a blur. And I'll never forget going out on the field and looking up, and it was like 3 minutes left, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the last time we're gonna get the ball. We have to score. So
do you ever look back, like, because whether you're an analyst or you're a fan, there's a constant debate on the helmet catch versus the Manningham catch. For me, like, they both have totally different stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Eli should have been sacked. Okay.
Right.
And that, the hole in the grass.
That one. That's where did you ask Richie about that one?
We did, but we it's funny. So Jeff does the editing for me. We start off that interview with Jeff showing that tape, and
I did a little breakdown of that play.
Good.
And he's
you
like,
seen how quick Richie and O'Hara got beat?
Richie got beat
very quickly. Very quickly.
He's lucky Eli
Jeff
got
does
away.
the voiceover, and he's like, if you don't know who Rich Seubert is, this is him. But then he recovers, you know what I mean? And it's like, that whole play was so crazy. Where the 11 one is just precision as precision gets. I mean, like, really. So I was just wondering, like, I don't know, like, you started that Super Bowl in 2011, so I'm sure that has a little bit more maybe meaning to you. But you ever just look at that pass and be like, yo, that's a rope throwing that Manningham ball.
I don't know how many times. I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't know how many times that pass is completed. Let alone in the late in the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl.
Let's not forget, it's not to your number one or your number two receiver.
Right.
Which is what Belichick said, right? He said, make him go to Manningham.
Go there. Right.
Yeah, because you're thinking, all right, you got Hakeem Nicks or whatever. Like, this is, don't get me wrong, the dude could ball. But Mario Manningham beat you with again, I haven't seen many throws like it.
And I will say this, going back full circle to Rich's comment about the left guard, if you watch that film, I am holding on for dear life against Vince Wilfork on that play. And Eli steps up in the pocket to make that pass. And if he has to do one more hitch, I think Eli is running into my back and that ball's probably fluttering down the middle of the field.
The craziest thing about that throw,
by myself.
That's the best throw of Eli's career. That's the best throw of many quarterbacks.
You talking about 2011, Jeff?
Yeah, 11 to Manningham.
I think so.
When he looked off the safety right, and it looked like he had, a quarter of a second before he let that go. It happened so fast where he's like that and like bam, just lets it go. And then Justin Tuck is being interviewed like, yeah, it was a great catch, but what choice did Manningham have?
The ball's put right there.
It's like right in his hands in a window this big.
Yeah, it's to me, it's still the best throw in Super Bowl history. I don't think there's anything close to it.
Agreed, man. That throw, it's how fast Manningham was running to do it in that moment. This is the last drive of your season. It's the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, and you need to score a touchdown. And to do it in that moment is what makes Eli great.
Sure.
So what's the plan? Is there a plan in the works for the anniversary? Do you guys all get together?
Yeah, I think they just announced it that I want to say it's the October 17th game. It might be the Rams. It's we're gonna have a weekend reunion. I think there'll be some activities in place and then have everybody come back at least for that game. So definitely looking forward to it. We had the Super Bowl 42 one 4 years ago, and it was amazing. And I'm just happy that we've seemed to have made progress with the whole pandemic here so that we're able to get this in, because I think it was looking a little bleak here for a little bit.
Yeah, just yesterday, the system broke a couple times, but just yesterday. So I'm a season ticket holder, and I guess if you're trying to get tickets, they sent an email out last night, was FanFest. So you can buy, up to 6 tickets, for an upcoming event. I think it's in August.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
11th.
So popular that it crashed the system 3 times.
Oh man.
Like the Giants literally sent a note out being like, we know we're on it. That's how people are, excited and eager for Giants football. Cause you go a whole year without it. It's different. I've been going to games since 1984 with my dad, you know what I mean? So, I think people are clamoring for a good season and, to get back in the saddle.
For sure. It's going to be exciting. I know how awesome Giants fans are, and, everybody lives and dies, so to speak, with each game, each win. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun season. And, I think it's one of those things that, it gets taken away for a little bit, to an extent, right? Not being able to go to games. I think it's just going to be that much more electric in that stadium this year.
The fans are going to be nastier and louder than they ever have before. And because the Giants should be competitive, right? Like it's been a rough few years, and then we couldn't go to games.
Too.
Well, Kevin, let me ask you, because I paid, too much for a ticket today. I bought it today. Me and 2 of my best friends are going to the September 26th game against the Falcons. It's the Eli Manning ceremony game.
Yeah.
Will you be at that one?
I hope so. Yeah. I think that's the goal. I think a lot of us would probably try to be there for that one.
But do you go as an NFL ambassador, or do you go?
That's the thing. I got to see if I can get in the building. If not,
you can get on the sidelines. Yeah,
from
I would play that
from my current role to get there. I think I'll figure it out one way or the other how to get.
Yeah, you will. You have much better connections than I do.
Are you East Coast because the New York offices? Are you still?
Yep, in North Jersey. And then, going back to the Giants and how awesome the facility is and everyone there, it's still as if I'm a player there. If I have to go there on any type of business or meet with people, it's, open doors and
so
you go see everybody.
I'll let you in.
I don't even know if I want to work out. I don't want to lift any of those weights anymore. I think I lifted enough of those weights.
You did your time, man.
Steer clear of those. Yeah.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us. You're listening to another episode of the Giants Guys. That's, of course, 2-time Super Bowl Kevin Boothe. I'm gonna hit you back up, maybe like on a bye week or something, or
for sure,
or maybe when the season goes, because again, we have to find delicately a way to get some
Yeah.
neutral opinions.
For sure. We can definitely do something. I look forward to it. I had a blast.
Get it. Like he, cause, and I appreciate you texting me and saying it. Cause like, we want everybody to understand, like you gotta roll. So we know deep down you're a Giants fan, deep down in here. Got the 77. That was your brother's number, right?
Yeah. That's why I wore 77. My brother, he played through college. He played offensive line at East Carolina University, and he wore 77. So I was able to wear that most of my life, other than the Raiders. 67 with the Raiders, and when I got signed by the Giants, it didn't look like 77 was available, but then somebody changed their number actually the day I joined the team, and 77 magically appered. So
was that an easy choice for you? What number? I imagine that's kind of a heavy decision to make for some players.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If it works out, it works out. If not, I'm not gonna, pout about it.
But, you're still playing in the NFL.
In college, right?
Yep, I had 77. Yeah, high school, college.
That's a family number there.
I'll end with this. Carl Banks told us a story. We were rolling how he wore 54 at Michigan State. He shows up, first day. Andy Hedden meets him at the equipment booth, and he says, "Yo, young buck, if you want this jersey, it's going to cost you $30,000." Carl Banks looks at the equipment manager, goes, "Yo, give me anything that's in the bag."
That's it.
He throws him a jersey, and it's 58, and then that's
he makes it. Yeah, he made it legendary. The number didn't make him.
Yeah.
The way he tells the story, though, is it's priceless. He's like, "It's not my number. I did my job in my number, and I'm done."
Yep. Yeah, he is. He's one of a kind. Carl's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. You're listening to episodes of the Giants Guys. This will be carved up and edited for tomorrow. We'll drop it. We'll keep tabs on you. And also, if you have any interest, I can shoot you some info on the Jim Fossil golf outing that's coming up too.
Yeah, I think we actually got emails about that through our alumni thing. So I was going to check dates on that. I saw that.
It's actually, so the guy, so I told you I have season tickets for like 40 years. The guy that runs our private bus that goes, he's one of the hosts. So he had shot me a note today and said, "Hey, if any of the guys you interview or any of your listeners want to have a foursome in it, I know Simmons and Elway are going to be there. I think Tiki Barber might be like one of the hosts too. So I can always shoot it to you in case you need any more info on it. And all you listeners out there, if you're interested in playing a foursome in an upcoming Jim Fossil Foundation golf outing, we can get you that too. So we're OUT out. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks, brother.